Hey guys, BMR here today with a guide on how to win your release tournament for Flame of Leviton. As you can see here, I've won 2 playmats, playing Fable and an Aggro deck. So today I'm going to be covering the 2 distinct archetypes that you're going to experience in any release tournament, and hopefully it can carry you to a win at your local event. So let's get started with the Aggro deck. So first of all, I'm running 3 copies of Iron Rod Defender. So this card, very strong aggro card, and it's got hero synergies. So of course we run 3x in aggro deck. We also run 3 Actress Feria. We do run some Fable cards, but for the most part, we're playing it because it's a 1-mana 2/2, and we're an aggro deck, so of course. Next, we're running 3 copies of Old Man and Old Woman. Again, this is also a Fable card, but for the main part, it's a 1/2 with Bane. If you attack them with face, they can't really trade into this effectively, because it trades with everything and kills it. So again, very strong 1-cost follower. Next, we've got 3 copies of Wingy. So Wingy's effect is when it evolves, it can basically search your deck for any follower with 2 attack or less, which happens to be a majority of your deck. On top of that, it has Ward, and it has synergies with cards that buff Ward followers. So again, very powerful card and a huge consistency tool. The next card is, well, Two-Third Fangs. So this card's a snowball tool and it's a ball control tool. Basically, say you play a huge follower, and then they play a follower, and then you attack and you use this, you're paying 1 mana to kill their 3 mana or 4 mana follower, and the game is basically over from that point onwards. So this card is a very huge blowout tool. It can win you the game on the spot. Sometimes it's kind of hard to play. Your mileage will vary. Okay, cool. So starting with the 2 costs, so Maisie, this is just really there, so you can remove a follower for 3 mana. It's great for snowballing. Potentially, you could cut this if you really want to. If you want a more consistent option, you can run the 3 mana one from Forest, but ultimately it's up to you. Next card is probably one of the more important cards. So it's 3 Princess Snow White. So this card is a Fable for all of your Fable synergies, especially with Maisie. And also it's very sticky, so when it dies, it goes to EXN and you can play it again. So this card basically guarantees you a bit of a curve. It's got Ward to protect your followers. Overall, it's a very strong card. Definitely recommend 3 copies. The next one is 3 copies of Amethyst Lion. So this card is 2/1 Storm, and it also has the effect that it can buff a card with Storm or Ward. So this is most relevant with cards like Snow White and Wingy, and gives +1 attack. Very strong tempo tool. This does a lot of damage to the enemy face, so can't really do anything about it. Of course, we're also playing the hero package, so 3 copies of Mirror. This card can evolve, bring back a hero follower. It's also just generically a 2/2, but when it attacks, it gains 1 attack and 1 defense. If it's another hero card, so it's another snowball tool. I think it's pretty good. Okay, onto the 3 costs. So we run 2 copies of Red Rage Worm. So this one here, essentially you play it, you tap it, it's a 5/5. They can attack into it, but the issue with that is, of course, if they trade into it, there's not many effective answers. Like, for example, Alice will die, and this will still live. And then they've got the 4/5 pesky ward again. Doesn't really do anything in the face of this. It's just a great kind of tempo tool. So, yep, we run 3 copies of that. Moving forward, we also run 3 copies of everyone's favorite card, Mac Knight. So, one thing I'll mention is that this deck does not run Heroic Entry. Heroic Entry is actually a bit of a brick. So, imagine you play Heroic Entry and you don't hit this, you pretty much just lose the game on the spot. This card's actually good even without Heroic Entry. Like, honestly, in some situations, you're perfectly fine with just drawing this and then harm casting it. Like, usually when you play Hero Sword, you just mull this away, but in certain situations, like if you have like a 1-cost, 2-cost, and this, you might actually keep the hand. Because then it lets all of your recursion, so Valiant Fenceless and your Mirror, become live. So I think this card is actually quite good. Next is 3 copies of Ruby Falcon. So it can evolve and do 2 damage to an enemy follower, and also you can pay 2 mana to give it Storm, and it's got a great 3/3 Storm body, so just a bit of additional tempo if it comes up. Overall, just a strong card. And then we run 1 copy of Lilac, so this is a card that you can run instead of the Macy, if you so please. It's really up to you. You could also cut it if you really want to, but I think these cards are just generically good. Next one is 3 copies of Valiant Fencer. So this can search pretty much your entire hero package. So that's why it's important to have this in the grave, because once this is in the grave, you've got a self-sustaining package with the rest of your deck. On top of this, please note that your wingy can actually search for pretty much everything. Notice how everything is like 2 attack here, so you can pretty much search your entire deck, except for the few 3-cost and higher followers in the deck. The next card on the list is the 4-cost, so we've got the Young Ogre Hunter Momo. So this card is pretty good. I mean, you can play this with 5/5, but also if you have Fable cards, this can kind of clear follower and trade, and it's usually a 2-for-1. It can help you clean up your hand. So, for example, you can play this, draw a card, and then you can get rid of your Mach Knight into the grave. So overall, it's just a good card. 5/5, can't complain. Ideally, with this deck, you are hoping to kind of draw out the Humpty Dumpty early. You're kind of okay with the trade, because if they haven't set up in time and they Humpty Dumpty, they actually just lose. And the final 2 cards in the deck, so I'm running 2 copies of Dark Alice. So I think Dark Alice is a really strong card. There's not many outs to this in the format at all. The only card I can think of is potentially Cosmo Fang. But of course, not many people run Cosmo Fang. So this is a 6/6 follower. It's basically guaranteed to do 6 damage the next turn. I make some discard a card, which can be relevant. And when you're racing people and you play this, they know they're taking 6 damage. It's almost like a delayed storm. So other thing to notice is this card, you can actually choose not to use the effect, and you don't need cards in hand to activate the effect. So that's pretty much the deck list in terms of the evolve deck. So I mean, it's pretty much just 2 copies of every evolve card. So running 2 copies of Mirror, running 2 copies of Wingy, running 2 copies of Valiant Fencer, 2 copies of Mach Knight, as expected, and 2 copies of the Falcon. So that is effectively the deck. I think it played pretty well for me. It's a typical aggro deck. Does exactly what you think it would do. Yeah, I could recommend this if you don't want to play the Fable package. Alices are pretty expensive, so if you don't have Alices, this is a good alternative. I actually could not be bothered playing the Fable Mirror, so I decided to play this at my tournament, even though I do have Alice, but I also won a tournament with the Fable package, so I mean, you can really play whatever deck you want. Depends on what you have and what you're feeling. In terms of some alternative suggestions you can run, I have seen a few interesting ones. So this is a pretty strong aggro card. Basically, you tap an amulet and you can bring out a storm follower. So I've seen some really creative options, like people play this, kills a follower, creates a draconic weapon, and you play this, and then you create a 2/2 and it's 5/4. Stuff like that is really cool. You can also run Diamond Master package. Note that your Evo stays pretty tight, but hypothetically this card's pretty good in the format. You can also run Cosmo Fang. So this card actually does have synergy with the card in your deck. So you can actually bring out the Beast follower, which is the 2 damage storm. So you can bring this to Cosmo Fang, swing for 2, and then evolve Cosmo Fang, and then basically get massive amounts of tempo. So, I mean, those are some alternative options you might consider. And then there's also, sorry, the last one is Cinderella. So, overall, these are some of the tech options I would consider, but I think the deck that I showed you earlier is completely fine with the format. So that is aggro, done and dusted. Next up is the Fable deck. So I'm just going to bring this up. The Fable deck, of course, again, 3 Acrospheria. So this card, I mean, it's really strong. 2/2. You want to curve this out early. Combos with all of your Fable cards, awesome. This card, of course, consistency tool, gives Fable counters for Tin Soldier, etc. A must-have at 3. This is a preference card, so Kiss of the Princess. You can sometimes get the free mana, so this is a Princess, for instance. But even if you're paying 1 mana for it to give a Fable counter, that's usually worth it. Let's put this over, so it's a bit easier to see. And then the next one is 3x Old Man and Old Woman. Again, it's a Fable card, so you can search this with cards like Alice's Adventure. And you can search it and then give 1 mana and rush sale, so this can clear literally anything in the game. And then you've got 3 Bladed Hedgehog. So this one is an anti-aggro tool. Originally there was no aggro in the format, but then people realized it's viable, so it's a pretty good anti-aggro tool. It does absolutely nothing when you're behind in the mirror, but if you played early, or if your opponent's already behind, it can be pretty huge pressure tool. 3 Alice, of course, so best card of the deck possibly. Not much else to say. 1 copy of Humpty Dumpty, so because you can search it, because you don't want to draw multiple copies, it's not the same as using Constructed. A lot of people cut it to 1, Some people prefer to play the triple Humpty Dumpty and Explosion package. I'm not deciding on which one's better. Obviously, the multiple Humpty Dumpty and Explosion package is a lot better for like the grindy matchups, like for example in the mirror. But it's a bit worse against aggro, for instance, because Explosion can be a dead card if you don't have enough Humpty Dumpty. So up to you. 3 copies of Tin Soldier, of course, very, very strong card. You want to bring this into the EX zone in the grave, and then of course you put Fable counters on it, it does 10 trillion damage. It's absolutely busted. Rapunzel, well-stabbed follower, it's ward. It's one of the few ways to kind of stifle aggression early, because a lot of decks don't have an easy way to deal with the 4-5. And then also you can give a Fable counter and you can attack the enemy leader's face the next turn. So yeah, definitely a strong card. And then I am running 3 copies of Ogre Hunter Murmur. So this card has Rush and Assail, so it's one of the only ways that you can actually easily clear your opponent's followers. So for example, you could do stuff like, what's an example? Like you could play Alice, evolve it on turn 3 with an Evo point, and on turn 4 you can play this, or whatever it might be. Or if you have residual kind of followers in the field, you can really like, snowball your lead. And you can use this to discard your Tin Soldier or something like that. So I think it's a strong card generically, 5/5. It's not an option you usually have available because it's a slog card, but surprisingly, it is pretty good. And then we've got 3 copies of March Hair Time, so this card's busted. It's like a get 2 cards from 1, and then the recursion effect from Tin Soldier or Humpty Dumpty. It's really, really strong. 3 copies of Pinion Prince. So this card can bring back anything. Usually it's Tin Soldier, but I mean, potentially it might bring something else back. It's really up to the situation. And then your options, like your late game curve. So I'm running 2 B&Bs. This card, if you bring it to the X zone and then you drop it, you get Storm. So being based, strong card. And finally, we've got Cinderella. So Cinderella is just a Storm option. It doesn't really have any other effects that you really need to worry about. But keep in mind that it's comes with Kiss of the Princess, so you can play this and Kiss of the Princess. Go Fable, attack to 6, and then bring something else out. So that's pretty much the deck in a nutshell. So just played as like an average kind of Fable deck. I mean, obviously your main objective is to burn them out using cards like Tin Soldier and Humpty Dumpty. It's a bit more aggressive than usual because there's less kind of there's less mechanics to kind of deal with early tempo. So you want to play it as sort of like an aggro deck usually. But obviously it has a great late game, so it's really kind of up to you. And also for both decks, you want to go first, obviously. Okay, in terms of the Evolve deck, so base is not tight whatsoever. So run 2 copies of Hedgehog, 3 copies of Prince, 2 copies of Humpty Dumpty, 3 copies of Alice. Is that right? 6, 8. Yeah, I think you could probably run 3 copies of Humpty Dumpty. It did come up once where I was like, oh, it'd be nice if I had a 3rd copy of this. I think you can probably just cut this. Like, there's no game where, like, I mean, if you were to evolve this 3 times, it would imply, like, turn 5 you evolve it, turn 6, and then turn 7. Like, no game is going for, like, that long, like, if we're being real. And especially not in such a way that you're playing 3. So, I would actually probably just cut this and run, like, a 3rd copy of Humpty Dumpty. By the way, it doesn't really make much of a difference in an average game. So, it's a Fable deck in terms of some options that you can run. Apart from that, I think I had some prepared. So, of course, you can run this. So, this is an infamous combo with Humpty Dumpty to keep it alive. Heals you, one of the only healing options in the format. Pretty good. Feather Fangs. So, again, this card, it can randomly blow out games. I haven't seen many people play it, but it's an option. Explosion. So, again, I mentioned this already, but of course, if you want the really high highs, then you play this with 3 Humpty Dumpty, and you've got the highest kind of, the highest ending. Good in the mirror in particular. And you can also run Flower Princess. So this card is extremely good against aggressive decks, so you can run this instead of Hedgehog. It's really up to you, but you play this and you get a counter and you kill it, and then they have to kill it back. But I mean, at that point, aggro is like almost completely lost. So these are some of the other options. Of course, there are other cards that you can put in here, but those are the ones that come into mind that you could replace. Overall, I think this format is one of the formats of all time. Like, it was interesting kind of deck building for it, but in reality, feels like it's very reliant on going first, and sometimes it really just doesn't matter what you do. You just lose to the early curve no matter what deck your opponent's playing. So anyway, these are the 2 decks I would consider playing for a release tournament. Hope it helped out, and if not, at least it's a historical video as to what 2 archetypes were successful. So if you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.